I'm going to give you a couple tips on using the endo pulp test form in acute care. It is really difficult to see 3 or 4 different teeth at one time and compare them on this form. You can only see at most 2 teeth at a time. So once you've filled in all of your information, if you go up to the print screen over here and hit the printer, don't hit print but hit preview, it gives you this really nice chart that shows you comparatively what things are across the board. Also tells you the comments for each of the teeth. Now, a couple things are different in acute care versus in endo or in perio or using the pulp test form in other parts of the clinic. We want to know which tooth is the offending tooth. So you may have a tooth that you give 2 pluses to cold. You may have a tooth that gives 3 pluses to cold. We want to know which one's the worst. You may have a little bit of cold sensitivity on 13. Let's say that 13 has caries on the distal contact. Cold test slightly more sensitive but doesn't recreate the patient's chief complaint. Putting that in the comments makes sure that I know it for the rest of the appointment, me being the student, my professor knows it for the rest of the appointment, and then if someone sees the patient a week later that has never seen them, they know what it was a week before. Just having 2 pluses there by itself does not mean a whole lot. 3 pluses, again, putting in comments to describe why it's 3 pluses. A large MOD amalgam with a fractured cusp and visual evidence of recurrent caries. That says, hey, this is probably something that is going to feel cold and have an exaggerated response to cold with. Negative, obviously, doesn't feel cold. Positive, feels cold but doesn't hurt. Now, something that gets a little controversial, if there's such thing as controversy in pulp testing forms, is plus or minus for percussion and biting. Doesn't really matter what you put as long as it's obvious what the gradation is on the patient's response. So if you put plus, 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 plus for all of those, but percussion hurt on one, we don't know which one hurt or which one hurt more. So putting 2 pluses for things that hurt, or 3 pluses, or 8 pluses, I know some people say that's excessive, but it definitely describes the patient's response well if they responded with an extreme exaggeration to percussion or biting or whatever you might be talking about. With perio probings, you don't necessarily have to put 3-2-3, 3-2-3. You can just put within normal limits. That's perfectly acceptable. Same with mobility. We don't do heat test a whole lot. So if you guys can get used to looking at this form when you're comparing things across the board, a lot of us will start using it in acute care. I know I do. Dr. Carroll will use it here and there, and we're trying to get everyone else on board with using it so that we can talk about things and not just scroll up and down and go back and forth and make sure that we know what is the chief complaint and what is something that may need to be addressed in the future. If you have any questions about this, don't hesitate, let me know.